Today we're going to talk a little bit about pressure flakers and what they should be, how to sharpen them, and how they work. So this is a pressure flaker that one of my friends brought by, and he made this himself, and he just used a curved piece of cedar branch, it looks like, and you can tell by the angle here that there was some major problems, and if you look closely there at the end, you see that's just a very dull point. Now here's one of my pressure flakers. This is the one that I've had for quite a few years now, and I use it on a regular daily basis. Now this one has two set screws so that you can tighten and loosen it and adjust the length of your tip. One thing that's very important is that the longer your tip is, the more you're going to have some lateral pressure, and you're going to get some flex in the material, and it's going to end up bending like this. Also, this was used with a piece of copper grounding wire, which can be used if you put it into a vise and get a long piece and put a drill on the other end and just slowly turn it until it breaks off, and that will suck in the molecules of the copper and make the tip a little bit harder. What I use in my pressure flakers is I use a piece of copper alloy rod. Now you can see the tip of this one is starting to get pretty dull, pretty flattened off. This is one that I've sharpened, so you can see the nice fine point on there. And this is one that I just put together and have not done anything with. Now when you sharpen a pressure flaker, ideally what you want to do is you want to use a handy dandy hammer. This one was made by Stanley, and you can see the face of the hammer is smooth. It's not a waffle surface. You do not want to use a waffle surface hammer. You want a nice smooth hammer. I think I paid about 10 bucks for this at Walmart. Very handy tool. And the reason why you hammer your copper instead of using a sander or a file is because when you use a hammer, you're not removing any material. All you're doing is hardening the material and shaping it out. That's very handy because well, as you can see, I'm a professional napper and I do this for a living, and I've lost about 1/8 of an inch maybe over the course of 2 or 3 years on this pressure flaker. I don't grind it and sand it and remove material all the time and have to slide my copper rod out. I simply hammer it. It's soft enough that it reshapes and reforms, and I'm not losing very much material at all. So what you want to do, if you're getting a pressure flaker from me, it will be ground on 4 sides. You want a nice fine point at the end. If you're using a piece of round stock like this, you could see that that's just a nice round piece of copper alloy, and you want to pound this out to a nice 4-sided tapered point. So let's do that. I'm going to set my flaker down here on my anvil, and I'm going to beat it out, flip it over, beat it out, flip it over, beat it out, flip it over, and beat it out. Then I might do just a little bit of fine tweaking with a sander. We'll see how it works. Now, I don't know if you can see that very well, but what I'm doing when I strike the copper is I'm pulling it back to pull the copper out. And you can see now, hopefully, the shape of my flaker has went from a square, it's widened out a little bit, and it's really flat and narrow. So now I'm going to hit it on this side and pull the material out some more. Most historians would agree that copper was one of the first metals to be used after the Stone Age and even during the Stone Age, because it's so soft and easy to work. The way that you the way that you treat copper is you hammer it out. It's called cold hammered copper. And now you can see this one that I've just finished and my old one side by side. Hopefully you can see that this is a nice fine point where this one's rounded off and needs to be pounded out a little bit more to get it to a fine point. So this flaker is almost ready to use, but the length of my copper sticking out here is a little bit longer than what I like it to be. The longer that is, the more likely you are to bend your point. So I just have 2 hex screws, set screws in the side. Pull it out, push that down in there, tighten her back down. And there you have it. And again, there's a lot of advantage in hammering the copper because it gets harder. Where you file it, you are removing material. Hammering it, you keep the material. When you file it, the material actually gets softer than if it's hammered and you're compressing those molecules together and making them tighter. So there we have it. Now we're ready to try it out. So let's see how our flaker works. Just going to sit on my stool here. Hopefully I got a pretty good view for you. And I'm just going to take one of my leather pads here. I do sell these also. You can buy from me on eBay under www.stoneculture.net or on Facebook by searching for Stone Culture at live.com, or contact me by email. Now this is a preform that I've made from triple flow obsidian, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it in my hand like this against my leather pad. I'm going to create a space here with my fingers so that I'm napping into that space, and that will not stop the flakes from shooting across. Now on the very end, I'm not shooting the flakes very far, so I'm not using a whole lot of pressure. Just going to nibble that away a little bit, get my flakes started. And you can see here what I'm doing is I'm trying to space my flakes out so that you can see these divots, and where this flake came off, I just move over the edge of it, pull another one. Now this flake ends right here, so I'm going to move over here, and I'm just using maybe a 1/16 of an inch. I'm just taking off the very outside edge. And as I move down, further down the blade, my flakes have to shoot farther to reach all the way across. So I'm using a little more inward pressure. You can see this flake run. Flakes went all the way almost across. Got one little island here and then this section here. So I'm just going to come back to the other side. I'm going to put the nap side down, put my flaker back on there, and pull off the little bit that's left over. Get my one little island there. And there you have it. There's one side of a preform napped. Now I can just flip the preform over in my hand. And as I've mentioned earlier in the videos, some people like to start at their body and work away. Other people like to start away from their body and work back. Here's a great example of a mistake on a preform. If you look, you could see this little shiny area right there where the grinder didn't take that material down. And what that will do is that will make my flaker just slide right off there because it's too smooth. So I'm going to take an abrading stone and I'm just going to scratch that up a little bit, and now I should be able to nap right past that part. So this time I'm starting at the wide end, so I'm going to start with more pressure. And then as I get down further, I will lessen my pressure because I'm not shooting it very far. Now here's a flake that came off. Hopefully that shows up okay. Oh, now it's on the floor. So you can see the length of my flakes I'm shooting. I don't have a problem shooting a flake about 2 inches. So I can nap a blade that's 3 inches wide without any problem. But it's actually pretty rare that I nap a blade that big because of the harmonics that happen, and oftentimes those big blades like that, big preforms, will just break before I'm even partway through them. So there you have the second side. You can see that there's a big island right here, so I got to go back and shoot that flake. I missed it. That's okay. It's alright, everybody makes mistakes. So I'm going to put my flaker on there and just pull it off. Now, one thing that's important about your flaker is you're keeping it sharp, but I'm not using the side of the flaker, and I'm not using the tip of the flaker. I'm actually using, well, here's a better example right here on this old one. You could see how this is got a line here, an edge, and then there's an edge right here. On the edge of this square shape, I'm actually using the very, very edge of the flaker to put pressure on there and pull it off. A little hard to see when it's such a fine ground point, but we're going to make sure that we're on there and just pull our flakes all the way off. One nice thing about having 4 sides like this is if your flaker starts sliding, you simply rotate the flaker in your hand and you've got a new edge to work with. So I've got 4 edges on here that I can nap. That means I don't have to sharpen my tool after every single flake run. There you go. Looks like I got a big bad chip there, but I can fix that when I do my grinding or with an abrading stone. You don't need a wet grinder. You can do this with an abrading stone. You can just take this down, file the edges, and you'll get a nice thin edge, and you can put your flaker on there and nap it again. So you don't need a wet grinder, or you could just continue right on and go back and remove more material, come back, remove it from this side, back and forth until you get a nice smooth thin edge. And then you can put your flaker on here and just grind that edge off to give you a nice straight line. Hopefully we taught you a little bit about flakers today, maybe corrected some flaking problems you might have. As I mentioned in all my videos, posture is everything. You want to keep your leg at a 90-degree angle from your body. Have your flaker out here. Have your hand supported on your thigh with a leather pad. I should be wearing gloves. I definitely have my eyeglasses on, so you want to take advantage of the safety equipment that's out there. Otherwise you end up with cuts on just about every finger, and that's not ever very fun. Okay, next we're going to move on to a new chapter. Feel free to email me with any questions, and I'll see you at the nap ends.